guys, it's Jen from Creatively Homemade. Today I have a simple lighthouse card for you that is great for encouraging someone who is going through a rough time. I made this card for a family member who's going through something really difficult right now. I wanted to send her a note of encouragement and let her know I was praying that things get better for her. The sentiment I used on this card talks about hope, and my hope is that it makes her feel a little bit better to know someone cares. I used the Stampin' Up! High Tide stamp set to make this card. It has some really encouraging sentiments, and I love all the detailed image stamps like the ocean waves and the flock of birds. Want to learn how to make this card? Let's get started. You want to start by cutting all your paper. The card base is Crumb Cake cardstock. I cut it to 8.5 by 5.5 inches and then scored it at 4.25 inches to form an A2 sized card. You can use a bone folder to ensure the edges are crisp if you want. The next layer is a piece of designer series paper cut to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. The last layer is Crumb Cake cardstock cut to 3.75 inches by 5 inches. Now we're going to do some paper tearing on this layer. All you have to do is tear a thin strip off of each edge. Repeat that all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going for a rustic feel here. So now we're ready to do some stamping. Pull out your High Tide stamp set. To form the lighthouse image is a two-step process, and it involves stamping off. Because the sentiment is going to be stamped over the lighthouse, we want the lighthouse image to be lighter. So take your Smoky Slate ink and stamp the base lighthouse stamp on a piece of scrap paper. This will take off some of the ink so that your final image is lighter, and that's called stamping off. Then without re-inking, stamp the lighthouse image onto the torn cardstock layer, just like so. So now you need to stamp the rest of the lighthouse. Ink up your stamp using Island Indigo ink. Again, you will need to repeat the same stamping off process of stamping on scrap paper first before stamping on your card layer. These stamps are photopolymer, which means you can see through them to line up the stamp with the image below. Take your time to ensure the image is lined up perfectly before you press down to stamp the top lighthouse image. I find it easiest to do this by looking down directly above the stamp. This two-step process to stamp the lighthouse results in a finished image that has shading and a realistic look. Next, we are going to stamp the lighthouse beam. Using crushed curry, ink up your stamp. You don't need to ink the whole image. You only need to ink a couple of inches from the tapered end. Stamp off on scrap paper and then stamp the beam from the light going off to the right. Then ink up again and repeat the process to have a beam of light going off to the left. This will finish up your lighthouse image and we'll be ready to stamp the sentiments. Now any of the sentiments from this stamp set would work great for an encouragement card, but I chose the one that talks about hope being a lighthouse. Ink up the sentiment with black ink and stamp directly over the top of your lighthouse. Since we used the stamping off technique to make the lighthouse image lighter, the sentiment should be easy to read. Now the only thing we have left to do is to make it look a little bit more worn. We're going to give this layer an aged look by sponging Crumb Cake ink around the torn edges. You can do this with any small piece of sponge, but I really like the Stampin' Up! Sponge daubers because they fit on the end of your finger. Just dab the dauber into the ink pad a couple of times and then flick it along the torn edge of the cardstock to transfer some of the ink to the torn edge. Repeat that process on all four sides to give your paper a worn look. Now the only thing we have left to do is to stick the layers together. Use snail adhesive to stick the designer series paper to the cardstock base. Now you are going to add some ribbon to your card. To go along with the rustic feel, I use Stampin' Up's burlap ribbon. You'll need a 4-inch length. To help the ribbon stick to the card, I recommend using mini glue dots. Add one to both ends and the middle. Place the ribbon in the middle of your card, pressing to secure. The last thing you need to do is to stick the stamped layer down to your card using Stampin' Dimensionals. Stampin' Dimensionals are bits of foam adhesive that give certain elements of your cards some dimension and depth. Remove all the backing from the dimensionals and press the stamp layer firmly to your card. And that's all there is to it. You're finished. I hope you have enjoyed learning how to make a pretty lighthouse encouragement card using the High Tide stamp set. For more information or to purchase any of the supplies I used, please check out the links included in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching and have a great day.